the Open Mobile Summit, and pleased to be joined by Bill Malloy, the Chief Marketing Officer with Sprint. And Bill, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Please start first with a little bit about your role at the company.
As head of marketing, I head up all of the Sprint branded marketing that includes brand as well as acquisition marketing, customer marketing and retention, which is key in our business, as you would know, product marketing, services marketing, and all things digital, as well as what you'd expect, pricing.
So as we move to higher speed, better bandwidth, able to do more on devices, there are so many more devices out there. An issue certainly becomes, for the end user anyway, sometimes a bottleneck for bandwidth. How do you guys handle that? I mean, you're known for the sort of all-you-can-eat buffet for data, all you can consume. How do you handle this greater demand that seems to be growing exponentially?
Sure. The company's literally rooted in unlimited, and as Dan Hesse, our CEO, is fond of saying, it's more than a rate plan. It's the whole idea that why would I ever want to limit you? So we've had that position for some time, and as a result, everything we do on the network side, including what we now have underway as far as complete retool of our network under Network Vision, is geared at making sure that you have the coverage, the capacity, the ability so that we can continue to provide you unlimited service so that as you use those applications and those services that are important to you, you've got that capability.
So how do we get there from here, or how do you get there from here? A better question, is it building out more cell towers? Is it a smarter system, infrastructure and network? How do you get there to presumably increase the customer base who's going to demand even more bandwidth?
Well, step one is the step I just described, which is underway. A complete, call it coast-to-coast, rebuild of our network. We just announced recently, as recent as just a few weeks ago, what we call Sprint Spark, which, unique from the other players, is our spectrum position, which is important to the average consumer. They don't think about it, but you've got to have, call it the capacity, if you will, in the air, in the spectrum to be able to provide the services and keep up with both speed and load. And thanks to our recent acquisition of Clearwire, we're now embarking on a plan where we unite three levels of spectrum that we described, 2.5 or 1900 and 800. What it means for a customer is, could you ever have a device smart enough, and we have that device, they're now available, called multi-band phones, tri-band phones, that depending upon what you need to do and when you need to do it, you build a network smart enough to say, if you need coverage and you're doing this, I'll give you coverage. If you need speed, and you're doing this, I'll give you speed. Because as we all know, it can be highly variable. Some things take more bandwidth than others. Some things you are very impatient with if you don't get them in a real snappy way. Other times, you're more tolerant. And what I think we've never had, which is a big idea, is the ability to have a network be that smart about it and make it seamless for the customer at the device level. And kind of in essence, that's the plan that we've outlined in Sprint Spark.
And you talk about speed, coverage, and capacity, right? These are all very key parts of this plan. What's the most important and what's the most difficult?
Well, I guess having been in the business, as many years as I've been, I don't know if any one of them is kind of less difficult than the other, because they all get rooted in call it just the physics of you've got to get cell sites built, or you've got to get now microcells in place. You've got to get kind of network in place, and just kind of get that whole infrastructural piece in place. I think. To your question, what's more important is, traditionally I think the industry probably would have said, well, certainly, reliability is always key. I mean, you want to be able to have a reliable connection. If you're on a voice call, you don't want it to get interrupted. Again, you'll be a little more tolerant if, maybe there's a sessioning going on with email where you served it up and you're looking at one, and for some reason, then it caches in the second one. So now we're in this different world where different things we do on the devices, we do kind of behave with those applications and those uses differently. And I think what is interesting to your question is, the thing that's important to you is, I think, what we aspire to, which is we don't want to limit that. If we could get to a point where the device in combination with the network knows what you're trying to do and knows what customer experience you expect when you're doing that, then I think that's when you've got the aha. I think that's very different going forward than perhaps the way we thought in the past. Because I think we had a tendency to say, if you want data, you look like this. If you want voice, you look like this. And you're maybe trying to solve for both at the same time. With the advent now of all the things people are doing on devices, there's a smarter way.
If you look at sort of the all-you-can-consume plan, is there a way to sort of offset cost or to monetize it with maybe, sort of what some folks call the toll-free data plans, where you work with a partner who's a lot of bandwidth? You think of sports or movies or something where you sort of share revenue streams there. Is that something that you guys are actively doing?
Well, I think there are a lot of ways to. There's a lot of value creation, I think, left in the world of wireless providers. At this conference today, because it was really focused on mobile advertising, for example, and mobile marketing, that's certainly one. I think that what we've learned is if you value a service, you pay for it. So that opens up all kinds of, call it, revenue models. And I think one that we've talked about for years and years and years is when are we going to be in the year of mobile advertising or mobile marketing? And we launched a platform last year, Insight Media, as part of Sprint, where we're not only using it on our own behalf to market to the 55 million customers that we have on service, but we use it on behalf of others for marketers to also do mobile advertising and marketing. So I don't think that's a small deal in terms of over time, given where we are and all the things we're doing with our network that you asked about in terms of can you give someone an unlimited experience? Can you keep from limiting how they use the device with what kinds of apps and what kinds of experience they want? There's a lot there that brings value that people will pay for.
When we look at mobile spending, it's still a drop in the bucket as a part of the bigger picture.
Mobile ad spending?
Mobile ad spending, that is, yes. When do you see that growing? Do we see the pie increasing, or is it just going to come from somewhere else? Is it going to be a shift in ad spending?
I think it's both. I think the pie will increase. But let's first talk about the shift. I think that the shift is underway. Just in the time I've been at Sprint over the last 2 years, we've shifted, even on our own behalf, what we do in other mediums to more on mobile. And understandably, you have the largest penetration of smartphone devices for our customer base versus the others, and people are interacting with that device every day. So it only stands to reason that if I can connect with you and market with you, I should do that, and then also do it to others. So we've been making those shifts. I think there's a day in our future. It's kind of interesting. If you look at, as wireless carriers, we're pretty traditional advertisers, frankly. It's kind of shocking to me that when I began in '84, we spent a lot of money kind of holding up a lot of media outlets because we'd all felt like we had to be in the newspapers, and we all felt like, well, now we all got to be on TV. And if you kind of just add it all up, it adds up to about $4 billion of spend that puts among the big four carriers, all of us in about the top 20 of ad spenders. And the two big guys are like number 2 and number 3, and then the 3 and 4, we are down there kind of in the teens. But amazing that as category players we spend that much compared to all brands in America, and yet we're the ones who have all of these screens, if you will, and devices out in the hands of people. So I think we're going to come to this awakening, probably even as wireless players, to start to push more there,
right?
Into mobile advertising, more into mobile marketing on our own behalf, because we're both an enabler and it just makes sense for us.
Yeah.
And as we do that, I think others will follow. It's surprising sometimes you actually see brands outside of the wireless category putting more into mobile on a percentage basis than we do than the mobile guys. So it's kind of a fascinating place, and I think we're right at the point now where people are starting to see it as that and say, how do I make it more effective, more measurable, get a better return, given those dynamics.
Speaking of returns, can you quantify it, or is there more of an emphasis on acquiring new customers or preventing churn?
Well, it's always been a business about loyalty in terms of retention, and so that's just fundamental of this business, and now today I think what it's become is on the acquisition front. Sure, you're always trying to acquire new, but that now looks different in a lot of ways in terms of more households are adding more devices, and that's just with smartphones, and now when you go to tablets, and then as you start to accessorize and you start to add services. So again, I think we're just kind of at the front end of a lot of that, just given all the innovation that's happening around all the devices now that operate on the wireless network. So it changes that marketing scheme, as you might expect, as well, in terms of how you start to consider those devices, how you search for them. My guess is you're like most of us. If you see something you like, the first place you go is online to just kind of get a real sense of, I think I'm in the curiosity phase of this. Now you're doing that via mobile. I think you can see where this all goes. It just needs to be a lot simpler, a lot more seamless for you to actually, carry that all the way through the decision process and make it seamless to close the loop. And if that closing the loop means I bought, how did you want to buy? Did you want to just buy online and have it shipped here? Or did you want to buy online, have it shipped to a store?
Right.
I think as mobile players, we now have, the opportunity to be more of a leader there rather than just an enabler.
And what about second screen? Talking about other opportunities in along the same lines. I mean, you've got the screen in your hand whether you're at a sporting event. I don't know if they're taking them out in the opera or not at this stage, but nonetheless, people are checking all kinds of information. They want their data when they want it. How is that being perceived as an opportunity by you, and what are your plans in terms of the marketing for
Sure. Sprint is traditionally, and you see the other wireless carriers, done their share of things around sports. And I think sports is very interesting. Just in the time that I've been back inside of the carrier world over the last couple of years, it's changed dynamically, which is, sports is, live audience is just a huge, all things live just kind of speaks to a lot of things today. If you think about even where, call it conventional television programming has gone, we've gone to reality shows, we've gone to things like The Voice, that look, they're not as, you want to see them live because there's the action of live, and you want to share.
And you don't want to be spoiled, right?
And you have this level of engagement that goes well beyond the television, and we all know that. I mean, it's you're tweeting it. You've got the tail afterwards in terms of all the stats, or you've got the whole fantasy sports phenomenon, and much of that's being played out on wireless devices.
So how's it being monetized?
I think in two ways. One is obviously I think some significant moats, as I'm fond of saying them, have been built by some of the sports franchises. For goodness sakes, the NFL, the NBA, ESPN. I think they've been pretty smart about it, and hence why you want to participate in that. I think it spawned a lot of just ancillary companies. I can think of things like the Bleacher Report, to others that you never would have thought of that said, okay, I've got to play here. And I think if we bring this full circle and say, All right, if you wanted to have brand placement in that and create inventory and advertise in it via mobile, there are opportunities there as well. So, because it's just kind of where passion meets, the ability to engage in it, and then, what's the intent if you're the advertiser of the brand? What am I trying to get you to do next? Am I trying to instill some level of loyalty? Am I trying to get you onto a purchase? Do I want to be there contextually? We know
Or is it just a banner? There's got to be a better way to engage, right?
Yeah, we know who the contextual advertisers typically are around things like sports and music and other, and I think more of those dollars, we'll start to recognize this plays out beyond, call it just traditional media. It plays out in a lot of second screen activity.
Or it gives you an opportunity maybe on someone else's network to get in on the second screen placement, with perhaps the data plan. I mean, it's sort of, it's an unusual gambit, I guess, for marketers.
Sure.
All right, well, Bill Malloy, thanks so much for joining us here from Sprint at the Open Mobile Media Summit.
Okay, thank you.